Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We're going to be looking at some really cool AI stuff today. Specifically, projects and tools that could have a big impact on, like society.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of sources. Like we've been digging through AI newsletters, Reddit, even Discord.
Lots of interesting conversations happening there.
Absolutely. So much to unpack.
It really is like an amazing time to be following all this AI stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
The innovation is just, it's incredible.
Yeah, like every day there's something.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, how is that even possible?
Right.
So speaking of whoa, the Allen Institute for AI, they just like dropped this bombshell with OLMo 2.
Yeah.
Their latest open source language model. And I don't just mean open source as in like, they shared the weights.
Right.
They gave us the data, the code.
The whole thing.
The whole shebang.
Yeah, it's a really big deal because it makes all this powerful technology accessible, to more people, to a much wider audience. Because traditionally, like to develop these models, it took so many resources, right?
Yeah.
It was really only the big players that could do it. But now with OLMo 2, they've really leveled the playing field.
So we're talking 7 billion and 13 billion parameter versions.
Yeah.
Trained on 5 trillion tokens, 5 trillion. Like, just to help me wrap my head around this,
Yeah.
how big is that kind of other language models?
It's definitely up there with the big ones.
Yeah.
It's like the 13 billion parameter version is comparable to some of the most powerful models out there. But what makes this one stand out is that it's open. So anyone can download it, experiment with it, even build on top of it.
I mean, that opens up so many possibilities.
Yeah.
So like researchers, developers from all over the world can now start, tinkering with this. But it's not just research, right?
Right.
Like what kind of real world applications could benefit from something like OLMo 2?
I mean, think about education, healthcare, even like environmental conservation.
Yeah.
With this tech organizations and even just individuals, they could develop AI-powered tools for so many things, like personalizing learning, analyzing medical data, tracking, like changes in ecosystems. I mean, it really has the potential to like change how we deal with some of the biggest challenges we face.
And it's not just about the size and accessibility.
Yeah.
They use this technique called reinforcement learning with verifiable rewards in the post-training.
Yeah.
I won't get into the nitty-gritty here.
Yeah.
But what's important is that this approach helped improve the model's performance even further.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a great example of how researchers are like constantly pushing the limits of what's possible, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that they made all of this open, I think that shows their commitment to making these powerful tools available to everyone.
It's incredible to think that a small team or even like a solo researcher could now work with technology that was, I don't know, like previously only available to these massive companies.
Yeah.
It feels like a turning point.
I agree. It is exciting to see this shift towards more accessibility, and I'm really curious to see what kind of applications come out of it, what people will build.
Like this whole idea of making AI more accessible, it kind of brings us to our next project, which actually takes a different approach. It's like shrinking things down.
Right.
So we're talking about SmolVLM from HuggingFace.
Yeah.
It's this vision language model that can run, get this, on a MacBook.
It might sound a little counterintuitive, like why would we want to make these models smaller? But actually making them more efficient, it can have a huge impact on accessibility.
Because not everybody has access to these massive computer systems.
Exactly.
Or expensive hardware.
Yeah.
So it's like instead of bringing the user to the powerful computer, we're bringing the AI to the user's computer.
Exactly. Wow. So SmolVLM, it's a 2 billion parameter model, which, I mean, compared to OLMo 2, it sounds small.
Yeah.
But it's still incredibly capable. It can process images, text, and it's way faster than its larger counterparts.
So we're talking 7.5 to 16 times faster than Qwen 2VL, which is, another vision language model.
Right.
It can even achieve 17 tokens per second on a standard MacBook. So what does that kind of efficiency mean for like someone who wants to use AI for a project or a business? What are the practical implications there?
Well, imagine, right, you can run sophisticated AI, applications without needing any fancy hardware or even like a super fast internet connection. This opens up so many possibilities for, students, entrepreneurs, artists, anyone with a laptop and an idea.
And it also makes it more sustainable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If these models need less energy to run, that's a win for the environment.
Mhm.
And it also means that people in parts of the world with, with limited infrastructure can still access this technology. So I think SmolVLM really shows us that we don't always need like bigger, more complex models to get amazing results. Sometimes the best innovations, they come from finding really clever ways to make AI more efficient and accessible.
And that kind of brings us nicely to another project that's, focused on accessibility, this time in education.
Yeah.
Google's Notebook LM.
Yeah.
Now, this one really caught my eye because of all the cool discussions I saw on Discord.
Yeah, I saw this too.
What really stands out is how people are using Notebook LM to make, learning materials more engaging and accessible.
Yeah, it's not just about absorbing info, right? It's about transforming that info into something that really clicks with different ways of learning.
There was this one example that just stuck with me. Someone was talking about using Notebook LM to take content from a natural history museum, the exhibits, artifacts, all that,
Oh, wow.
and turning it into podcasts.
That's a fantastic idea.
Right. So it's like bringing those exhibits to people who, who can't actually visit. Maybe they live too far away or they have a disability.
Right.
It just makes knowledge and culture so much more accessible.
Absolutely.
And then it's not just about existing content. Someone was asking about language support, specifically Spanish.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
The potential there for language learning is huge.
I mean, imagine you could interact with a personalized AI tutor, one that adapts to how you learn and how fast you learn.
Right.
Notebook LM and tools, it could really change how we learn languages.
It really seems like AI is already making a big splash in education.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're just getting started. But before we, get too carried away with all the excitement, I think we need to address some of the concerns that have been raised about these powerful tools.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, with great power
Comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it is important to remember that with any powerful tech, there will always be questions about how it's used.
Right.
And what it means, for the future.
And I've seen some discussions online about data privacy, especially with tools like, Notebook LM.
Right.
It's dealing with personal info. People want to know that their data is, safe.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. And it is good to see that developers are taking it seriously. In the case of Notebook LM, Google has said, very clearly that they're not using that data to train the AI.
That's good to hear.
They're committed to protecting privacy.
It seems like transparency is key here.
Absolutely.
The more upfront developers are about data and how it's being used, the more trust there will be.
Yeah, transparency builds trust.
Right.
And it also allows for a more informed discussion, out in the public about these technologies.
Right.
And the ethics of it all.
Yeah, speaking of ethical implications, there's been a lot of talk, about that leaked Sora API from OpenAI.
Right.
Sora is this mind-blowing AI. It can generate these photorealistic videos from just text prompts.
It's pretty amazing.
And this leak, it raised some questions of artist compensation, because Sora was trained on this massive data set of images and videos.
Right, and it's a complex issue. It highlights that we need clear guidelines and ethical frameworks for AI development. I mean, as these models get, more powerful, they can create this incredibly realistic content. We have to consider the artists and creators, the people whose work went into that training data. What are their rights?
Yeah, it's a good reminder that as we get all excited about the tech, we can't forget about the human side of things.
Right. AI doesn't exist in a bubble.
Right.
People make it. It's trained on data made by people. And in the end, it's meant to be used by people.
So it's about finding that balance between, innovation and responsibility.
Exactly. We need to keep pushing those boundaries. We need these incredible tools, but we have to make sure they're being used, in ways that benefit everyone.
And that kind of brings us to our final standout projects for this deep dive.
Okay.
Aider. It's an AI coding assistant. It's getting a lot of buzz because of its unique approach.
Yeah, the thing about Aider is that it works directly in your terminal. So it's totally integrated with, your coding workflow.
So it's not a separate app.
Right. It's right there where you're already working.
I've actually been, playing around with the latest version, v.65.0, And it is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
They've added some cool features like custom model aliases and support for Dart, so it's becoming even more versatile.
That's great.
But honestly, what really stood out to me was their focus on privacy.
Yeah, they've added that optional user analytics,
Mm-hmm.
so it gives people more control over their data. I think it shows they're really listening to those concerns, about data privacy.
And it's worth mentioning their integration with the Model Context Protocol, MCP.
Right.
Now, it might sound kind of technical, but
Yeah.
it's a really big step towards like creating a more unified AI ecosystem.
Yeah, the MCP is all about standardizing how AI assistants talk to different data systems, and that could lead to like smoother integration and more efficient development workflows.
So, I mean, we've covered a lot today, from these massive open source language models to AI that can run on a laptop,
It's a lot to take in.
and everything in between.
Yeah.
And it's clear that AI is, it's moving fast,
Mm-hmm.
and it's impacting so many parts of our lives.
Yeah, and what's really cool is that focus on making these powerful tools more accessible to everyone. We're seeing AI being used to tackle real problems in education, healthcare, even, taking care of the environment.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left feeling like optimistic.
Yeah.
Sure, there are challenges and concerns that we need to address,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also this amazing sense of possibility, and this shared commitment to using AI for good.
Yeah, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
I'm really curious to see what's next.
Me too. I mean, it's a journey, right? We're all on it together. And as we, figure this all out, we have to remember that the future of AI, it's not set in stone. It's being shaped right now by the choices we make, the conversations we have, what we do.
Well said. So on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up.
It's been great. I really enjoyed exploring all this with you.
Yeah, same here. And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep, taking part in this conversation about the future of AI.
It's important.
It really is. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of cutting-edge tech.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to something we've kind of been dancing around this whole time, the ethics of it all.
Yeah, for sure.
We can geek out over the cool tech and the advancements.
Right.
But we have to be thoughtful, responsible.
Absolutely. We can't just focus on like the wow factor.
Right.
Without thinking about, what could go wrong.
Yeah, and making sure that how AI develops is aligned with our values.
Exactly.
Like one of the things I saw people talking about that I found really interesting was this idea of explainable AI.
Yeah, explainable AI. It's becoming more and more important, right?
Right. Like as these models get more and more complex,
Right.
it's harder to understand how they're making decisions.
Right.
And that transparency, it's really important.
It is for building trust.
Right.
For making sure that these things are used responsibly. And also for figuring out if there are any biases, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, these AI models, they're trained on huge amounts of data.
Yeah.
If that data has biases, well, the model's going to learn those biases.
Yeah.
So, we have to understand how the model works so that we can fix those issues and make sure things are fair.
And that makes me think back to AIDR.
Yeah.
And how they're using that model context protocol.
The MCP.
Yeah. It's like it's trying to make a more standard way for AI assistants to interact with data.
Right. It's about making things more transparent. And hopefully that'll help with some of those bias concerns.
So, wow. We've talked about so much.
We have.
From those huge language models to AI running on a MacBook.
Yeah, it's amazing how far things have come.
And everything in between. It's clear that AI it's changing things fast.
Yeah.
And it's touching every part of our lives.
It really is.
Yeah, as we come to the end of this deep dive, I just feel, hopeful.
Yeah, me too. There are definitely challenges, things we need to be careful about.
Right, but there's so much potential for good.
There is, and that's what's exciting.
And AI, it's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. The important thing is that we develop it responsibly, ethically, that we think about the impact it could have.
Well said.
It's up to us to shape the future of AI.
Exactly. It's not something that's just going to happen to us. We get to decide how this all unfolds.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been awesome exploring all this with you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And, keep that curiosity going.
Yeah, keep asking questions and be part of the conversation about where AI is going.
Absolutely. We'll catch you next time for another adventure into the world of amazing tech.